There used to be galleries, you say, above both aisles.
Yes. Hideous, cumbersome things.
Victorian, they ran across the aisle windows.
Blocked the light dreadfully. You couldn't see the upper tracery.
Yeah, when were they removed?
I had them pulled down 10 years ago.
But until then, who used them?
Oh, school children, old folk.
I see.
Oh, and of course the servants from the manor.
Just before the war, when Sir Henry and Lady Thorpe were married, where did the servants sit?
Oh, exactly there.
It fits. It fits, Bunter, between the cherubims in the south aisle.
We've had the painters up there since then. If there'd been anything there, I'm sure they would have found it.
Not if my idea is correct, Mrs. Venables.
Here you are, my lord.
Ah, splendid. Bunter, give Harry a hand with the ladder, would you? There we are. Ah, thank you. The wood is pegged, sir, is it not?
Oh, yes. Beautiful old
Here we
way.
go, Mr. Venables.
Ah, good morning, Super. You got my message. Good.
What's going on?
Lord Peter is about to demonstrate where he thinks the emeralds were hidden.
Yes, where I'm afraid is right. They won't be there now. However, we shall soon see. Now then, he must have been able to reach it from where he sat. So, yes, that'll be the one. Hold tight, lads. Yes, here we are. Now then, wriggle it gently. And away she comes, leaving a nice little cachet inside the beam. Now, Deacon was probably sitting up here one Sunday, a little bored with the sermon. Sorry, Padre. He starts fiddling with the peg. It comes away in his hand. Then later, when he wanted somewhere to hide his little shiners, he thought of it again. Well, it'll be quite a deep hole because it's empty. Hello, it's not. By Jove. Well, I'll be...
The emerald.
Bless my heart.
And it was all over before his reverence said, "Here endeth." Catch, Harry. Yes, old lad, we're wrong. We've been wrong from start to finish. Nobody found them. Nobody killed anybody for them. Nobody deciphered the cryptogram. We're wrong, wrong. Out of the hunt and wrong.
But at least we got the emeralds.
Beastly things. They killed Grandfather. They practically killed Daddy. And they killed Deacon. They'll kill somebody else before long. Here, I don't want them.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry. I didn't mean it like that. But they do seem to have caused nothing but unhappiness.
Then I think it's time they had a chance to do the other thing. They're yours, Hilary, beyond any legal doubt. Your grandfather paid old Maggie Wilbraham their full value. And once she accepted the money, she forfeited any claims for the emerald should they ever turn up again. The question doesn't arise anyway, because she died 2 years ago. There were no heirs to the estate, so no one's going to dispute possession. Who did your father appoint as trustees?
His solicitors, Forsyth and Dunbury.
And they can take care of them until you come of age. Thereafter, you can do with them exactly as the inclination takes you. Chuck them in the Thames, wear them round your neck, or sell them for what they're worth. Meanwhile, if I were you, I'd put them in a safe place. The bank, for preference. The whole village knows they've been found by this time, and once the story gets into the papers... Come in.
Forgive this intrusion, my lord.
Yes, Bunter, what is it?
Oh, it's obviously private, and it's time I was getting home
No,
anyway.
no. On the contrary, Miss Hillary. It could well be helpful if you were to remain.
Why, something cropped up?
It could prove so, my lord. This morning, when I brought your lordship your early morning tea, you informed me that you had, with Mr. Venables, deciphered the cryptogram, although you weren't clear then as to its actual meaning.
That's right.
Your lordship, however, did not inform me that the cryptogram was based on a peal of Kent treble bob majors.
Yes, well, I am sorry about that, Bunter. It was very remiss of me. I'm afraid I was still half asleep at the time.
Yes, well, it was even more remiss of me, my lord, you see, because the night I visited Mr. Ashton, I learned from Ezra Wilderspin and Hezekiah Lavender that Geoffrey Deacon had been regarded as a very highly talented exponent of the Kent treble bobs.
What? Well, of all the dull-witted, muddled brains...
I do apologize, my lord. At the same time...
No, not you, old lad, me. I have been the most unmitigated and unconscionable ass that ever brayed in a sleuth-hound's skin. I knew that little gem of information. The Padre said as much to me. Well, of all the self-confessed idiots...
The fact that Deacon had been officially proclaimed dead in 1926, I mean, in no way excuses my failure to mention the fact, although it may explain why I didn't attach greater importance to it at the time.
If you, Bunter, are thinking what I'm thinking...
I think it highly likely, my lord.
Deacon escapes. He meets a soldier and kills him. Of course, some poor blighter on leave from France. He swipes his uniform and his papers. He dresses the body in his own convict clothes, shoves it down the Dean hole and gets clean away to France. Or are we assuming too much?
I don't think so.
By Jove, Bunter, it does seem to add up, what? I mean, here we have a wanted murderer with no military training, in fact, little or no knowledge of the war whatsoever, effecting an escape, which brings him straight to, of all places, the Western Front.
The shock awaiting him must have been indescribable.
He's wounded. Suzanne Legros finds him. She hides him, nurses him, marries him, bears him children, and he settles for the life of a farmer. But he is biding his time. One day he plans to return and get those emeralds, but it ain't going to be easy for him because he thinks he's still wanted for murder over here. And then by some means that we cannot imagine, he discovers that he's officially dead, and that is the beginning of it.
He'd want papers, a passport, a false identity.
So he chances his arm. He gets in touch with Cranton. And Cranton, having been diddled once, demands some form of guarantee.
The cryptogram.
Blundell showed it to Mrs. Thodey, and he is pretty certain that she recognized the handwriting. But we've still absolutely no proof that Deacon wrote it.
May I ask, Miss Hillary, after Deacon's arrest, do you happen to know if he was replaced in the household?
No, he wasn't. Because of what happened, there was a general cutting down on staff. He was the last butler employed there.
My lord, a good butler who knows his job always keeps a cellar book and a stock book. In fact, if called upon to do so, he might even keep the game book up to date during the shooting season.
Bunter, you're a genius.
Well, I'd hardly go as far as that, my lord. But these sort of records are seldom thrown away, and it did occur to me...
They haven't been thrown away. They're still at home on the shelf in what used to be the butler's pantry. Well, come on, let's go and see.
My hat, Bunter. If the writing matches, you realize what this is going to mean, don't you?
Only too clearly, my lord. A very unhappy state of affairs.
Come on.
Yeah, they match. No question of it. So, all these years, Deacon has been alive and kicking and bigamously married in France.
Until the very end of last year, when Potty Peak saw Will Thodey talking to him in the vestry.
The bearded mystery man who most certainly becomes our mutilated corpse. This is nasty, very nasty. The Thodeys are decent people.
There's only one thing that would drive a decent man to murder. The shame and humiliation of a public scandal. The realization that for 11 years he and his wife, as he thought, had been living in sin. And that their little children, so innocently conceived...
Would, in the eyes of the law, be considered...
As you say. In a city it wouldn't have mattered so much, but in a small village... So, when Deacon suddenly turns up from the dead, and Will recognizes him...
I'm having Will brought in now. And he's going to come across judge's rules or no judge's rules.
It's interesting, though. I mean, if it was Will, he certainly didn't run berserk, as you might say. I mean, he tied Deacon up, but the only injuries we know about were inflicted after death. And it certainly wasn't Will who buried him in Lady Thorpe's grave 4 days later, because he was practically dying himself, you may recall.
Brother Jim. Well, the Hull police are putting him in the minute he walks down the gangplank tomorrow. Blundell here. Yes? I see. I see. All right, get back here at once. Blast and double blast. Excuse me, my lord.
Not at all, Super. You blast away.
Will Thoday isn't being brought in.
Aha! I noticed he wasn't in church. Down a bunk, I suppose.
With wife and family on the 11:45 to London. I was that damn fool to show her this.
I say, that's awkward. London's a big place.
Oh, don't worry. We'll pick him up soon enough.
Well, soon enough will have to be within 2 weeks. After that, it'll be more difficult.
Well, why within a fortnight?
Oh, come on, Super. Ain't it obvious? Ah, yes, I thought he had a nice, easy number. May I use your telephone?
Help yourself.
Thank you. Canterbury 123, please. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, it's urgent. In their flight, you know, there is one thing that the Thodays almost certainly overlooked. We have an ally, Blundell, a haughty prelate, an arbitrary prince. To wit, the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Oh, yes. And Mr. Mussolini and the Emperor of Japan. Are you all right, my lord?
Perfectly splendid, thanks. Hello, Canterbury 123. Oh, this is Lord Peter Wimsey speaking. I'd like a word with His Grace's private secretary, if I may. Yeah, Alec. Oh, my dear fellow. How are you? Didn't recognize your voice. Oh, pretty much as usual, thanks. In the pink and having a spot of bother. Yes, well, if it ain't asking too much, I was wondering if I might have a word with him. You think so? Oh, bless your black button gaiters. We're in luck, he's putting me through. My dear Watson, haven't you got it yet? Well, for heaven's sake, man, it is staring you in the face. Hello, Your Grace.
Peter, my boy, a delightful surprise. To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? You actually mean that the Lords Temporal are seeking assistance of the Lords Spiritual? Wonders will never cease. But of course, if it is within my power. I see. Indeed. Then I think you had better tell me all about it.
I hated doing it, Bunter. But a wife, you know, ain't obliged to give evidence against her husband. And Will Thoday has gone to town to marry Mary Deacon. Hundreds of churches in London, Bunter. The banns could be called anywhere. The Archbishop will find out just where sooner than Scotland Yard. A rotten business, though. Wish I'd never started interfering. I don't care at all for the look of that, do you?
The spring tides are over, my lord.
Oh, it's still running deuced high. Well, those buttresses look a bit groggy to me.
I understand from Mrs. Venables that the vicar has been pestering the authorities for years to have something done.
But the ways of progress are both devious and delayed, what? Well, as long as it don't keep on raining.
Thank you, Sergeant.
What's this all about?
Well, I must say, Mr. Crampton, you're looking a mite better than the last time we met.
I told you I never had those shiners last time we met.
It looks as though we didn't happen to believe you, doesn't it, Nobby?
Sit down, Crampton.
Most obliging of you to come along like this.
Well, I didn't exactly come along, as you might say. I wasn't left with much alternative.
Why shouldn't you come? Nothing to hide, have you?
I'm a sick man. You asked the doctors down at the infirmary about my heart. Look, I've already told you everything. Why do you have to keep going on?
Nothing to do with us, old lad. Chief Inspector Parker here.
May I ask you an impertinent question, my lord?
If you don't mind receiving an impertinent answer.
Is it true that you and the Chief Inspector here are brothers-in-law?
As a matter of fact, it is, yes.
Hence the cooperation. I see.
Not at all. Simply that my sister Polly...
Yes, we won't go into that now, Peter.
Yeah, right-ho.
You want to know why you're here, Crampton? All right, I'll tell you. And perhaps you'll tell me a few things.
Well, I've already told them everything.
We sent a photograph of your friend Deacon to the French police. Suzanne Legros has identified him. Now, when did you learn that Deacon was still on deck?
I told you the whole story, my lord, and that's the truth. Look, any sort of pressure, the doctor said, and it would go very hard on me.
It'll go a damn sight worse for you if you don't answer my question. Now, when did you learn that Deacon was still alive?
Last July sometime. He wrote me care of the old crib. The letter was passed on by him. Never you mind.
Gammy pluck.
I name no names. But I got it. As soon as I came out, it gave me a hell of a shock.
Did he mention how he found out he was officially dead?
Pure chance. An old English newspaper lining the bottom of a drawer. If he hadn't found it, he'd still be tilling French soil. Mind you, he swore he never meant to kill that poor ruddy Tommy. He just hit him a bit too
Right about
hard.
that.
And once he knew he was officially dead, he saw his chance, no doubt. But he needed help. So he asked you for money and for a forged passport.
Which you supplied. Cranton, I'm going to give you one last chance.
Yes.
I must say you surprised me, Nobby. I mean, he'd already bamboozled you once. What made you think he wouldn't do it again?
Well, I thought he might. But the fact that he was wanted for you-know-what, well, it did sort of put him at my mercy.
So, you decided to go into business?
I'd already served my time on the moor. I earned a right to my share.
All right. So, you wrote back to Deacon, suggesting what?
Well, that he'd tell me straight where he'd hidden the stuff. I would find it, I said, and send him his share, but he didn't seem to think that was a good idea.
You astonish me.
Well, he said he'd come over and find them himself.
So you sent him the passport.
Not until I'd got a guarantee. I was sticking my neck out for him.
And as guarantee, he sent you that cipher. But you told us you'd never seen it in your life before.
Well, I was sick, wasn't I? Confused.
Even more confused when you got that, I should think.
All that guff about a tailor called Paul living in Fenchurch next to Mr. Batty Thomas.
Yes, well, it wasn't exactly guff now, was it?
Well, I know that now, my lord. You were smarter than me.
Oh, come. You were smart enough to realize that without him, there weren't going to be no emeralds. Whereas with him, there was just a chance.
Yeah, well, I sent him the passport and the money and gave him the go-ahead. Well, he phoned me from Dover on the 29th of December. Said he was going straight up to Fenchurch St. Paul to collect the loot. And then he'd bring it back to London as soon as he'd got his hands on it. Well, there was no word from him on the 30th, none on the 31st.
And you thought he'd pocketed the emeralds and nipped smartly back to France?
Or he might have been pinched. I didn't rightly know what to think. Well, anything was better than sitting around not knowing, so I took the train up to Limholt and started walking from there.
And that's when you and I ran across one another.
If I'd known who I was having the pleasure of stopping, my lord, I'd have turned round and walked straight back home.
Instead, you got a job at Ezra Wilderspin's and started making inquiries about Paul Tailor.
Bleeding bells.
Never mind about the bells. Tell me about Deacon.
There was no sign of him. But the more I thought about the bells, the more I thought there might be a connection. Trouble was, I couldn't get in the belfry. Locked.
But you did get into the belfry, didn't you?
So it was you who borrowed the rector's keys, was it?
Keys? Made a couple of picklocks. Well, old Ezra's forge came in handy, you see. I went out on the Saturday, a little after midnight. First thing I find, the church door's open. Well, naturally, I thought it must be Deacon. I'll just give him a bit of my mind, I thought, for not keeping me posted. So in I went, quiet-like, and I found my way into a place with a lot of ropes in it. Very nasty they looked. And then there were some stairs leading up into another room with more ropes. And then some more stairs leading further up. So up I went. And when I got there, well, I don't know how to describe it. There was a queer feel about it. Pitch black, beast of a night it was, and it was raining like hell. But I have never met anything like the blackness in that place. I felt as if there were hundreds of eyes watching me.
You've got too much imagination, Cranton. That's your trouble.
No. You wait, Charles. Just wait till you get stuck in a belfry alone in the dark. Bells are like cats and mirrors. They're always queer. It don't do to think too much about them. You go on, Nobby.
Well, I didn't know where to begin. I don't know the first thing about bells or how to get them or anything.
And all this time, there was no sign of Deacon?
No, I couldn't think what had happened to him. I was just taking a look round with the torch and there he was.
Dead?
As a doornail. He was tied to the bell frame. And the look on his face. I never want to see a face like that again.
Like what?
Like he'd been struck mad and dead, all at one go.
There was no doubt that he was dead.
You've never seen anyone deader. And cold. I just touched him. I don't know what killed him. I was just looking to see when I heard someone coming up the tower. Well, I didn't wait. I legged it up the ladder. There was a sort of hatch at the top leading onto the roof. I squatted in there and sat tight. And I heard this fella.
And who was it?
Well, how the hell do I know? I was up on the roof. But I could hear him shuffling about. And once or twice I heard him say, "Oh, my God," in a moaning sort of voice. And then there was a bump. And I reckon that he'd lifted the body and was carrying it down the stairs. Well, whoever he was, I didn't envy him the job of getting that stiff all the way down that blessed tower.
What happened then?
Well, I waited till I couldn't hear him anymore. And then, below me, up the far end of the graveyard, I saw a light. Hello, I thought. There's dirty work going on here. So down I came, and I ran. Golly, how I ran. And then I stumbled and fell into that blasted dyke. Cold. It was like an ice bath. But I got back to Leamholt in the end, and I caught some rotten milk train back to town.
And that's it, is it? The whole story?
Well, yes, except that later I couldn't find a cipher. I thought I'd dropped it on the road, but if you found it in the belfry, it must have fallen out of my pocket when I pulled the torch out.
All right, Clanton. Take him away, Sergeant.
You're not charging me?
Well, we'll have to see about that, won't we? While we're considering a few other little irregularities you'll have to answer for. Bring the other two up, then. He's a great talker.
Meaning you don't believe a word that he says?
Well, let us just say, Peter, that I will hold my own counsel until I've spoken to these two.
Incidentally, Earl Parkerbird, I haven't thanked you for all your invaluable help at this end.
There's no need. It does help having an archbishop on the side, you know.
Now, they haven't been allowed to meet, I take it, these two?
No, they've seen each other, but we've kept them apart.
Then I think it's time for a spot of dirty work, don't you?
Well, it's all set up. Let's go, shall we?
After you. Ah, thank you.
Come in, gentlemen. It's James and William Tholey, right? Thank you, Sergeant. Well, sit down. We've got a lot to talk about, haven't we? Yes? It's a bit inconvenient. All right, I'll take it in my office. Sorry about this, it won't take a moment. Here, help yourselves to a cigarette.
Well, William?
Well, James,
How much they know?
I don't know, but I've got a feeling pretty well everything.
In that case, you better let me take the blame. I'm not married, and there's Mary and the little ones to be thought of. But in God's name, man, couldn't you got rid of the fellow without killing him?
Well, I was just going to ask you the same thing.
I mean, it wasn't you?
Well, of course it wasn't me. I'd have been a fool to do it. I'd offered the brute £250 to go back from where he come from. If I hadn't have fell ill, I'd have got him away, and I thought that's what you'd done. And then when I saw him coming up out of that grave like Judgment Day, I wished you'd killed me alongside of him.
But I never laid hands on him, Will. Not after he was dead. I saw him there, the devil, with that ghastly look on his face. But I never blamed you for what you'd done, Will. I swear I never blamed you. Only for being such a fool as to have done it. And when I come to bury him, I'd broken his face with my spade. And I cut off his hands with my jackknife. That was the worst part, but I couldn't risk leaving him in that mark in case he was found.
He was found, all right. Well, it was just cursed bad luck, that grave being opened so soon.
Well, I might have done better to throw him in the 30-foot drain, but it's a long way to go hunting a dead man. See here, Will. If you didn't kill him, and I didn't kill him, well, who the devil did?
Well, gentlemen, we've been eavesdropping on your conversation. I left this intercom system switched on. We heard every word. Just as well, really. Sit down. It seems that you two have been suspecting each other and shielding each other. Well, now that we've got that clear, I think we ought to hear your stories. Yours first, Will, I think.
I don't know where to start.
Why not start with the night of December the 30th?
Oh, he went out, see, to tend a sick cow. I thought I saw a light in the church, so I went to have a look. There was somebody there in vestry. So I crept up on him very quiet-like, and I see him put something down on the vestry chest with a revolver. And then he tried to lug out Harry go to bed's ladder.
Since the fellow was obviously up to no good, you grabbed the revolver and said, hands up in the approved style.
And the man was Geoffrey Deacon.
He carried this great scar on one hand, see, where he fell down one day when he was carrying a tray with a glass jug on it. I knew it was Deacon, all right. He knew me. He laughed. Well, the bloke once married my wife, he said. Well, I knew what he meant by that. So I struck a devil's bargain with him. I said I'd hide him, give him some money to get out the country. But it takes time to draw out £250. And, well, Deacon was a murderer, so temporary-like, I locked him in the cupboard where they hang surplices.
Then you had the idea to hide him in the belfry. So you went to visit in Mr. Venables, borrowed his bunch of keys while he was getting you a glass of port, and went back to the church.
I unlocked the tower, got a bit of old bell rope, and got Deacon up into the belfry at pistol point.
And then?
Then I tied him to the bell frame, tied his legs, tied his arms above his elbows so he could move his hands. Well, I didn't want him to starve, see? And a bit later on, I brought him some bread and a couple of bottles of beer.
How on earth were you going to get him out of the country?
Well, I fixed that next day with the skipper of a small Dutch freighter, a man I knew through Jimmy.
That was New Year's Eve, the day that I turned up like a bad penny.
And the night that he got taken ill.
It was 2 days before I was well enough to talk to Jim. When Mary were out. But even then, I didn't mention it with Deacon.
I just said there was a poor wretch in the belfry, starving and bitterly cold, and that I was to get him away. So, up the tower I went that night, and I found Deacon, dead.
You recognized him?
Like Will says, by the mark on his hand.
That must have been a bit of a facer for you. I mean, you know, leave just up, due to rejoin your ship.
Blood is thicker than water, my lord. I knew that Lady Thorpe was being buried the next day, Saturday, so next morning I packed my things, said goodbye to Mary, and pretended to go off to Hull. Instead, I caught the train to King's Cross. I emptied Deacon's pockets, burnt his passport and everything in the fire in the waiting room. Then I sent a telegram to my company saying I'd been ill and I'd be a day or so late joining the ship. That evening, I caught the train back, and that night, buried Deacon in Lady Thorpe's grave.
Doing your best to make the body unrecognizable.
I chucked Deacon's hat and the pieces of rope Will had used to bind his hands down the well.
And forcing, with the tip of your jackknife, the very simple latch on the Venables scullery window, you dropped the keys back onto the shelf inside. All of which, the whole operation, I mean, must have taken the very greatest courage and devotion between brothers. A rare, in fact, a very rare thing.
Mary and the little uns,
They're quite safe, Will, rest assured.
There's nothing I'd like better than to make an honest woman of her.
And so you shall, Will, lad. With Chief Inspector Parker's kind permission, I feel sure that with a special license, a ceremony can be arranged tomorrow at St. Andrews, Bloomsbury, at which time you gain a legal wife, And we, for our part, are still left with the intriguing question. Precisely who did kill Geoffrey Deacon?
Staring at the rain won't stop it from falling, Theodore.
No, dear, it won't.
Sit down, dear, do.
Did you say something?
You're really worried, aren't you?
No.
Theodore.
3 years I've been trying to spur that wretched Whale Conservancy Board into some kind of action.
Yes, dear.
Not to mention the East Leven Waterways Commission.
I know, dear. I've been all through that with you.
Have you seen those timbers lately?
Timbers?
Holding Van Laden's sluice. And the buttress is almost falling apart as you watch them. And now with a deluge like this, if the sluice gates collapse, it will be grave, my dear. It will be very grave indeed.
Now, Theodore, you know very well that if the worst comes to the worst, we do have a master plan.
My dear child.
If there's real danger, everyone will know exactly what to do, will they not?
I mentioned the danger from the pulpit last Sunday, and I published a warning in the magazine. The entire parish has been alerted, as it were.
And if the floods do come?
Well, the church being on high ground will be our sanctuary, our ark, as you might say.
And do the animals come in 2 by 2?
Oh, the cattle, sheep, and pigs will, I fear, have to take advantage of the graveyard. The grazing is very good.
I think you're doing magnificent.
Men's sleeping quarters on the Canterbury side, women and children on the J-Can side.
As you see, my wife's the real manager. Marvellous head for organisation.
Hilary, dear, did you get hold of Mr. Tebbit?
Yes, he's bringing up 6 casks of beer and all the bottled stuff he's got.
Lord Peter, I was going to ask if you could possibly spare Mr. Bunter.
Yes, of course. Bunter? Here, my lord. I had suggested to Mrs. Venables that, under the circumstances, I might be of some assistance with the commissariat.
Why not, Bunter? Go to it, old lad.
I already have, my lord. The manor house is supplying all the vegetables that we're likely to need, and I've had a word with Mr. Ratner, the butcher, and he is preparing a quantity of steak and other meats so that stews and soups can be made in the preserving pans.
That reminds me. I must just go and have a word with the grocer.
I have seen him, madam. Half of his entire stock is already loaded on his van and can be here in 10 minutes. Oh, and I've talked to Mr. Gotobed and Wally Pratt, asked them to get the tea urns over from the parish hall.
Oh, splendid, Bunter. And with all those cows about, we shall hardly go short of fresh milk, shall we?
You know, if our chiefs of staff had cooperated like this, the war would have been over in about 10 days.
Ezra, all personal belongings are to be stowed in the nave. Documents and valuables up in the tower.
And the church plate, Vicar?
Oh, goodness me. I think right up in the belfry. It'll be out of harm's way then.
Right, Robert. A master plan indeed. There's only one thing, you know, Padre. When the deep waters come and call with the noise of cataracts, they move fast. Can your parishioners move faster?
Not faster, but in time. If things look bad, and I fear they do, the foreman in charge of the sluice gates calculates that he can give us 6 hours warning. That is the signal for the standby. We ring John and Jericho.
Of course, the bells.
If nothing can save the sluice gates, the foreman reckons he can still give us 2 hours. And that is the signal for the general alarm. I mean to say all the bells. Tailor Paul, Batty Thomas.
Issuing forth one last final plea for life.
And at that moment, the whole population move in on us here. The emergency plan goes into action. Jason, have you a message for me?
From Mr. Johnson.
Go and get yourself dry, boy. Harry! Get hold of young Wally and ring the standby on John and Jericho.
Right here, Vicar. Wally, to the tower, boy.
Trouble, Padre?
From Van Laden's.
So you've got about 6 hours, did you say?
At the very most.
I hate leaving you at a moment like this, but it is absolutely urgent. I see Superintendent Rundle. I'll nip over to Lemholt and be back as soon as I can.
Lord Peter, on your return, be our Mercury. Bring us the latest news from Van Laden's.
I will. Good luck.
According to this latest report, Cranton left Scotland Yard at 3:45 p.m. on Friday the 24th.
The day we talked to.
Made his way back to his lodgings, where he appears to have remained ever since.
He's made no attempt to communicate with anyone?
According to Chief Inspector Parker's man, he appears to have remained in the house. Yo, hold on a minute. Yeah, he's had a caller.
Yeah, no, that's more like it.
Just one. Visited him twice.
Name?
Dr. Merriweather, general practitioner. Authentic. Law-abiding. Issued a prescription in the name of Thomas Cranton for the treatment of a heart condition.
I wish to Hades he'd issue a prescription for me. Come to think of it, nothing could remedy bafflement of the brain.
So, friend Cranton, it would appear, is telling us the truth.
And I have got wet through for nothing.
Which brings us back yet again to Will Thody. He's not out of the wood yet, not by a long chalk. He admits compounding a serious felony by helping a murderer to escape justice. As a policeman, I'm shocked.
And as a human being?
Brother Jim's plight isn't much better. Attempting to conceal a murder by burying the victim and failing to report the facts to the police.
So what's going to happen to him?
Oh, they've been released. Yes, I discussed it very thoroughly with Chief Inspector Parker. The case will remain on the files and we'll continue with our investigations. The public memory is very short. Once it stops being a sensation in the papers, we can get on with our job in peace and quiet. How's things over at Fenchurch, by the way?
They're expecting trouble and getting ready for it.
Blasted floods. You know, there are only two good things that have come out of this whole business. The emeralds have been found, and that swine deacon got his just deserts.
But it ain't satisfactory all the same, old lad. In fact, it is highly unsatisfactory. I have a particular aversion, I'm afraid, to unsolved murders.
God, you're here, my lord. The sluice gate. She's going.
What?
Warn them at St. Paul. There's no time to lose.
Can I send you more men?
No. A regiment wouldn't do no good now, my lord. Please hurry.
My word, Thunder, it's delicious. Here, Ezra, try some.
That's right. You must show my missus how that done, Mr. Bunter.
A very simple recipe, Mr. Wimsey.
The electoral roll, dear. You'll need it when those poor souls start taking refuge.
Whatever would I do without you? Hello, Harry. You'll find Mary over there by the lectern. Ah, Mercury. Well, Peter, what news?
Bad, I'm afraid. We'll be lucky if the sluice gates last an hour.
Good heavens. We must sound the alarm.
Padre!
I've not a moment to lose. You must go back. Get the men away quickly. They must not sacrifice themselves uselessly.
My lord!
Did you say Will? Is he safe?
For the moment, Mrs. Thody.
We thought we'd best come back, see?
In the circumstances, that was brave, if not wise of you. All went well in Bloomsbury, did it?
Well, that's real this time.
You knew all along, didn't you, that the dead man was Deacon?
Well, I knew that was Jeff's handwriting when Superintendent Blundell showed me the letter.
You knew he was dead. That's why you insisted on running away.
To be married, that's all.
To protect Will.
Will's a good man.
He hated Deacon.
Oh, for what he'd done to us.
You hated him, too.
Me? What are you trying to say, Lord Peter?
Later, Mrs. Thorday. We'll have time to talk later.
Get out, sir! Here, my lord.
You're all to get out, do you hear me? Everybody out of here, and that's an order!
Look out! Johnny! 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 Johnny!
No! No, Will! All right, come on out of it. Quick as you can. Take your feet up, come on.
Louisa Hitchcock, Obadiah Holliday, Evelyn Holliday, Alice and Kenneth Honeywood, Hilda Ibbott, Jocelyn Innocent, Francis Irons and family, Miss Farley Jarrett,
Over to the stove, lads, and
James
get
Jacobs, Elizabeth and Sarah Jennings,
Oh, Peter, whatever's happened?
Will Thurley is drowned.
Oh, no.
Jeremiah Johnson, Ernestine Judd,
No,
Arthur
I'll break it to
Mary
him.
Judd, Millicent Keith, Marcia and Jason Knapp,
Will Thurley is drowned.
and Florence Kimber, Peregrine and Mary Lacey, Jane Merrick,
The sluice gates will collapse at any minute. Let the vicar know.
I'll be acting as lookout if you read me out the tower. My lord.
Harry and Ivy Wooden,
What shall we do?
Eleanor and Ruth Newell, Saul and Elizabeth Nottage,
He didn't want
Lillian Oakley,
He didn't want to live.
Joss Stevenson, Ezra Wilderspin, John and Sarah Yorath. God rest their souls. What a terrible thing. We must ring the 9 Tailors for them. Poor brave fellows. Excuse me.
Bunter, when you see Lord Peter, would you be kind enough to tell him we've managed to settle Mary Purdy for the moment?
I shall indeed, ma'am.
I cannot tell you, Lord Peter, how relieved I am to see you looking your old self again.
And feeling it, I must say.
Though you were wise, I think, to decide against coming to poor Will's funeral this afternoon.
Well, I should like to have paid my last respects.
Oh, I'm sure he would understand.
You know, Padre, I have a feeling that he may have guessed how Deacon died and in some strange way felt himself responsible.
He had no need.
No, as you say. Well, at least we don't have to look for Deacon's murderer anymore. They're hanged already, and a good deal higher than Haman.
Gaudet, Sabaoth, John and Jericho, Jubilee and Dimity,
Batty Thomas and Tailor Paul. And if I'd been up there 5 minutes longer, they'd have killed me, too. I don't know how exactly. Stroke, apoplexy, shock, anything you like.
I must confess, when I saw you, both you and Mr. Bunter, brought out of the bell chamber that night.
Have no fear about us, Padre. Bunter and I am afraid, are indestructible.
I have no doubt that the city of Jericho thought itself indestructible. But you may recall that the sound of a trumpet laid flat the walls.
And the note of a fiddle can shatter a glass. Yes, you're quite right, of course. No human frame could bear the noise of those bells for long.
You say that, Lord Peter, as if you'd known it all along.
Oh, my dear Padre, if only I had. But I did remember quite late in the day, I'm afraid, a story about St. Paul's Cathedral. It's said to be death to enter the bell chamber when a peal's being rung.
All the same, it was not our bells, Lord Peter. They were but the instruments of death.
Yes, I was rather hoping you wouldn't think of that.
It was my vaulting ambition that killed Deacon.
Nonsense. Every one of us who laid hand to rope that New Year's Eve killed Deacon.
Roped and tied up there for 9 interminable hours. What a fearful death.
Lawful execution may have been speedier, I grant you, but at least he didn't have to endure the waiting. He wasn't expecting death, and when it came, well, he was unconscious within minutes. Hello, Bunter, what's this then? Stealing a march on me, what?
I thought a brisk walk down to the village.
Beginning to look more like its old self again, don't you think, now that the floodwaters have almost gone?
The resultant odour, I thought, was not the most agreeable of sensations.
Tommy rot, Bunter. If this was Southend, you'd call it ozone and pay a pound a sniff for it.
Theodore, we must be getting back to the church.
Oh, yes. Excuse me, there's still a great deal to be done.
Yes, of course. Well, Bunter?
Well, my lord.
A clear night. And the forecast on the wireless was good. Give it a few more days. And it came to pass at the end of 40 days that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. And he sent forth a raven, which went forth to and fro until the waters were dried up from off the earth. Also he sent forth a dove from him to see if the waters were abated from off the face of the ground. But the dove found no rest for the sole of her foot. She returned unto him into the ark, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. And he stayed yet other 7 days, and again he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And the dove came into him in the evening, and lo, in her mouth was an olive leaf plucked off. So Noah knew that the waters were abated from off the earth. And he stayed yet other 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more. And Noah removed the covering of the ark, and looked, and behold, the face of the earth was dry. And God spake unto Noah, saying, Go forth of the ark, thou and thy wife and thy sons wives with thee. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is with thee, of all flesh, both of fowl, of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth.